Okay. Are you guys able to see my screen? Yes. Okay, good. And I don't know if the moderator's still around. Do I have like 50 minutes, or is it according to the time frame that we were given? So I was like supposed to start at like at 2:30, but we had some tech issues. I'm just wondering.
Will you please give us the core of the talk in a reasonable time?
All right, sure. Okay. So does that mean I have until 5 what was it? I'm sorry, 3:30?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, 3:30. All right. So, well, all right. Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here and having me. It's wonderful to be part of this, expo here at Guadalajara, at least in a virtual sense as well. It's such a pleasure to be with all of you educators. So I'll just get right to it because of the time. So I'm just going to share with you the power of podcasts in the classroom real quick. All right. So just a little bit about me. So yes, my name is David, Arthur Peña, or Arturo Peña in Spanish. I'm 31 years old. I've been involved with language teaching for about 7+ years now. Originally from New Jersey, I currently live in Tlaxcala, Mexico. I used to live in Mexico City for a couple of years. Then I moved to a place called Tlaxcala. It's a small state here, but it's a very wonderful place to be. Um, it's my second home. I'm proud to call it my second home. So throughout my time as an educator, I started basically with computer science. I did not start with language teaching, or especially with English language learning and teaching. That came actually a little bit later. Um, I just started with computer science, programming, that kind of stuff. But then my dad inspired me to take on something that's outside of my scope or outside of my commodity. So I knew that I was good teaching computer science and stuff like that. I was not comfortable with teaching grammar, linguistics, things of that nature. So, I took his advice and began, studying to become an English teacher. And, I also found a wonderful vocation in that as well. Throughout that time, as you can see below, yes, I have actually founded the Google Educator Group for the state of Tlaxcala, where I'm located. I've worked with the Wakelet community, with duoLango also hosting language events, both English, Spanish here, with Mo, with the National Geographic Educator team, and most recently with a startup company that I began called ooLango eLearning, which was also founded by a friend of mine, but I have now taken the full reins of the company. So the company is based on language learning, teaching, translations, all that stuff. All right. So I just want to share with you the importance of how we can use podcasts within our classrooms. Now, it doesn't have to be a language classroom. I know that we're speaking in English, and mostly this conference is based on language education. And just want to let you know, yes, we can definitely use podcasts for language education, as well as any other topic or subject that we want to teach our students, right? All right, so real quick, so I'm going to probably skip through a couple of slides just because of the time we have. I'm pretty sure you guys know what a podcast is already. I'm not going to waste time with them. All right, just present some quick facts. So, 59% of people like listening to podcasts while they're doing houseworks or chores. I myself, do that. 74 people who listen to podcasts, they do it in order to learn something new, right? The wonderful thing about podcasts is, yes, we don't necessarily have to, have something in our hands. All we need to do is just, plug either, earphones or headsets, something like that. And we can be listening to something productive while we do something else productive as well, right? And just last piece of data there: 56% of podcast listeners are between ages 12 and 34. So that's a good time frame there of ages that we have. All right. So what's good about podcasts? Yes, we know they're an internet audio file. They're very portable in various ways. So I'm not going to spend time on that. So how to use them in the classroom? Well, we have different services available. Many of them are actually for free. So why not use something that does not require the student to be like looking at a monitor or having a particular textbook at hand or needing a laptop or a tablet. We can assign things that are very portable, such as an audio clip, right? I mean, many of our students are listening to music, some of them like 24/7, but I would say a great majority of people are just listening to music at a constant rate. right? So since they're already, accustomed to this kind of activity, why not, present them something that will not be too far away from what they already do and know? All right. So, real quick, the ability of being able to select podcasts and sharing these episodes with your students is so that, yes, number one, that you can engage with them, right? Number two, so that they can also do some self-exploring within the topic, right? A lot of the times, students feel that they can be, led quickly into a topic without, any interest on their own behalf, right? But with the ability of a podcast, yes, we can present them the topic that we're showing them, we're teaching them in class, but maybe through the eyes or the lenses of someone else, right? They can also explore on some other topics of their own choosing, right? It also helps their imagination. Of course, very similar to an audiobook, we do have to imagine what is going on as the narrator is presenting, the book, right? So imagination is always a key part of this, right? Our brains are also hardwired to understand visuals, to understand images and diagrams. We'll get to that in a bit later, but I just want you to have that. An important part as well is the reflection period, right? We want our students to also reflect on what we're teaching them, not only in class, but also after class. We want them to take something home with them that is not only useful for the upcoming test, but that also proves useful in life or in your trains of thought, their manner of thinking, right? And last but not least, sharing, right? It is important that, yes, if the activity does have an impact, all right, that they can also share that with their parents, with other students, friends of theirs, you know, to share that impact that that particular lesson had and how the input not only of the teacher or the textbook, but also maybe from a different source, which should also be credible, by the way, right? Has something of an impact on what they thought, before and after. All right. So students don't have to be at their desk. It's a very portable kind of assignment we can give them. All right. Next, the Feynman technique. It's one of my favorite techniques. It's just to really break it down in case, for those of you who have maybe not heard of it or not familiar with it. So the Feynman technique is you study something and then it is your task to explain that to somebody else, right? Now, what is the objective of that? Well, it's quite interesting. You see, when you take a seat as a learner, you kind of just accept whatever is being thrown at you, in a sense, right? However, once you kind of turn your chair around and now the student has to show that to someone else, they have to explain, they have to teach it to a third party per se, okay, that's where also another part of learning kicks in because they stopped being passive. Now they have to also start reproducing what they've learned, which requires a different set of skills and responsibility as well. So actually, it's been proven that yes, while the person can indeed receive, the knowledge, the task, or whatever, the homework, the lesson, if they are able to reproduce that lesson to someone else and teach it to someone else in a maybe simplified or more fluent manner, okay, we can assess whether or not that student indeed understood what he or she received, right? Finally, to optimize the point of view of other resources. So yes, something I spoke about on a previous interview I had on a podcast channel was that over the course of time, students can become accustomed to our voice as educators, right? They are accustomed to our way of thinking or way of speaking and so forth. After a while, they like the connectivity pattern or the concentration pattern does not reflect as like at the very beginning. So what does that basically mean? So yes, they can become accustomed to our voice and maybe even predict some of our actions, but they have not become accustomed to someone else teaching that same lesson or subject, right? The brain actually picks up more energy, right, or synergy from someone else because it is an unrecognized voice or pattern. They are accustomed to you as a teacher, but not to this other person who's hosting the podcast episode, right? So that's also a bit of a plus there because they will now be paying attention to someone they did not know before, somebody they have never listened to, right? And the brain registers that activity actually much better. All right, so these are some of the places we can definitely go to. We have, our famous Google Podcasts, iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify. There are various educational podcasts available out there that we can really tap on as educators and potentialize them in our own classrooms, right? Oh, let me just go back to this one. By the way, if anyone is interested in like having or designing podcast classroom projects, which is a wonderful thing, you can use Anchor. Right, it's our go-to tool for many educators. Yes, it's free and it's very LMS friendly. Right. All right. You can use them and Canvas, Google Classroom, Blackboard, Edmodo, Classroom Dojo. You can basically use, you just copy the link and paste it. Like I said before, they're very LMS friendly. Depending on the platform you choose, I don't think you would have a problem assigning a podcast. All right. So just a basic list of some of the ones that I have here. All right, recommendable for students. On the left, we have stuff you should know, the Duolingo in Spanish, a history of the world in 100 objects, a Star Talk, TED Talks daily, and so on, right? For the educators, for all the teachers out there joining us today, on the right, we have the EdWeb podcast, the Educating All Learners Alliance, the Classroom Exit Strategies podcast, the Teachers Talk Radio, the Google Teacher podcast, and so on. All right, so these are some of my favorite, both for students and for teachers. All right, so I'm just going to really quick and dive into some of the things that us teachers can use for our classrooms and podcasting. Here we go. All right, so this is a bit of a layout I made myself. These obviously, you can print them out or you can just assign them digitally, whatever you prefer. I mean, that's the advantage here. So this particular layout that I have here, first part in green is labeled, learned in class. So the student is going to be able to take notes of what, he or she remembered in class, what the topic was about, what they still can recall. All right. For homework, they can listen to a podcast based on the lesson that was taught, that day or that week in class. Right. On the yellow area or section, they're going to take notes of what the podcast presenter had to say about that particular topic. Next, questions and contrast. Now, this is the important part. I basically always encourage my students to always ask questions and not be afraid of asking questions, because questions will definitely propel further the learning. It's like fuel, it's gasoline. So in the red section, they are tasked to write questions and to contrast ideas between what was learned in class and what the show notes had to say, or the podcast episode, and of their own experience or their own understanding, right? I think this is a great way for them to actually kind of in a time frame per se, write down or jot down the ideas of the entire activity. Right? The more accustomed they are to this, the more they will be able to have constructive thinking. All right, another one. All right, now this one is more maybe for our artistic students out there, students who definitely like to draw, who like to just maybe do some squiggly lines here and there. But of course, I mean, by no means does the artistic ability have nothing to do with this. No, on the contrary. Right, it has been shown that people who actually draw concerning the topic, that they can draw a diagram, a time frame, a timeline of some sort, retain the information or the lesson better than those who just maybe type up a text. Right? There are various brain activities that are required when drawing something, when putting something on a frame, on a picture. So that requires ability. Right? Now, the person does not have to be, a Picasso. They don't have to be, an anime artist to be able to take advantage of this. No. We don't require the student to have any artistic ability at a high level whatsoever. No, whatever they can write down or jot is sufficient for this activity, right? For example, here, they can just, diagram the lesson, right? Whatever they remember, they can write some pictures about it, or I'm sorry, draw some pictures, write some notes, and they can even rate the episode what they would like. At the very bottom, we have, 5 stars. They can fill in whatever, they felt. Maybe it was a 3-star episode, a 3.5, a 1-star episode. We'll let our students just have fun with that and rating it. All right, that's another worksheet I made up here. So this once again can be printed out, it can be digitalized, whatever. So the student puts in their name, the date, the podcast channel, the number of the episode. They write down their 3 key points or takeaways, interesting facts. They can rate the episode as well. They can write the goals of, if the topic is about might take around maybe a week or so. They can definitely write what the goal of the week is at the end of such a lesson or such topic, right? They can draw something in the big picture section. So, the cool thing about this is we as educators can come up with all the wonderful ideas that we think, teachers would like to see. Students would like to see. And most importantly, participate in, have a homework that they're looking forward to in a sense. All right. And basically that's about it. All right. Thank you very much for being here. I still think we have some time. So if you folks have any questions or anything like that, I'm more than happy to answer, right? If anyone wants to go back to the slide, maybe take a picture, something like that, we'll do so. All right. Sorry, I had to kind of rush it a little bit, but we had some technical difficulty. So just, giving you guys everything in a nutshell and just, showing or sharing with you some of the things that I have done in my personal classroom. Oh, and by the way, since I'm still sharing my screen, right? All right, let me just show you guys something real quick. So for example, let's put this into practice, into application. So this is a Google Classroom I have. I'm going to select this one I made for today's presentation. All right. So this is my Google Classroom LMS. All right. It says FIID May 2023. All right. I have just a couple of things here in the streaming section for our students. All right. So let's go to classwork. As you can see, you can have math, poetry, culinary arts, medical science. It really doesn't matter. We can find an educational podcast in any of these topics. Right, just in the name of participation here, okay, someone in the audience, give me a subject that, they want us to look up.
Professor Peña?
Yeah.
A person from the audience would like to ask you a question.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, we'll go with the question.
Hello.
Hi there.
My question is, at what level would you recommend start working with podcasts with students? Because obviously, very basic students will find this kind of activity very challenging. But what level have you found out that it's like the minimum acceptable to start working with this media?
Yeah, good question. So I would recommend maybe ages 13 and above. In my particular case, I do deal with students at a middle school, high school level, and yes, I also do teach and train adults. So I would say on my personal experience, like 13 and above has proven to be a good number, at least for me.
Thank you very much.
Sure. All right. Does anyone else have another question?
I think we're all right. Thank you.
All right, awesome. So, okay, so I'm just really gonna, for example, I don't know. Let's imagine we type math because we're a math teacher, for example. All right, so we can click on math. All right, so we have the math and physics podcast, which I'm subscribed to. All right, so let's see. All right, let's pretend that, the lesson was based upon, let's see here, Dr. Jack Wolski, for example. Let's say we had a lecture on him. So we're going to click on this one here. So this is an hour and 39. Now, of course, this would be more tailored to university students. You can obviously look for shorter episodes if you have middle school or high school students, because you don't want them, losing, you want them to just, be withered away with the task itself. So this is like, almost 2 hours. But, let's just pretend that, yes, this is for a university student. All we have to do is just come over here, copy the link, right? Oh, sorry. You go to your Google Classroom, go to your assignment. In this case, I'm going to click on edit. We're going to add the link there. And then we're going to click on save. So yes, you can see there at the bottom, I have my link to the Google podcast episode, and I do have my 3 pictures just as a show of, an example there.
We are not looking at the screen.
Oh, you're not? Oh, my bad. Sorry about that. Give me just a second. It says my screen share was paused. Oh, my bad, my bad. I'm very sorry, folks. Okay. So I'm going into Google Podcasts, one of my favorite places to look for. So let's imagine I have this episode here based on math and physics, right? Maybe I was giving a lecture on Dr. Zach Wolski. So I'm just go ahead and copy the link here, right? Let's pretend this is for university students, all right? Over here, you can see the length of the audio. So, that's something to look out for as well, right? You can come here into your Google Classroom, paste the link by just clicking here on the link here. It's going to show here at the bottom. And then for this example, I just have the 3 images here. Students can choose whatever they want from there, for example. Right? We can just click on save. You can type in a title in there, and there you go. Okay, you've basically saved, all right, an assignment there for them, and they don't need to be looking at a textbook, at a computer. They don't need to be in front of their laptop. No, they can be doing various activities. They can be doing chores. They can be doing exercise. They can very well be walking their dog or something, but they'll be able to listen to whatever assignment you have, given them, and while they're doing something, take in the other information as well. Okay, so it's being very straightforward. I'm not saying that this is a huge topic that no one has ever talked about before. No, I just haven't seen personally a lot of teachers use podcasts within the classroom. Some of my colleagues have. I have heard people who are totally against it. Everyone has their own ideas, but I do think that it's worthwhile if you have done this before and have good results. I'm pretty sure you can also come up with even better ideas and results in the future. If you have not tried this before, I mean, why not? You can give it a try, see what happens. If it's not restricted within domains of the school and so forth, give it a shot. Try. It's always good to try something new, right? To try something that can be productive, educational, and yes, nowadays, sometimes it's a little bit harder to find, especially as adults. It's a bit harder to find ourselves time to read, maybe voraciously as intended years ago. Some of us, have been avid readers, but as time has progressed, we have less and less time sometimes to sit down and read 1, 2, 3 hours as we used to. Right. So in my particular case, I know that I was like that when I was younger. I used to read a lot, had 3 or 4 hours to do so every day. Now I can't. I don't have that much time as I did years ago. But I'm a huge fan of audiobooks. I always listen to something, whether in the car or while I'm jogging or something. So I always like to catch up. If I have the audiobook version available to me, I will most likely take that. So it kind of goes hand in hand with this topic of podcasting. But I just wanted to present that to all educators out there, or anyone who's interested. Try this at home. Try this in the classroom. Share the idea with someone who you think might be interested in this and would like to, take it, to the next level. All right. So. Thank you so much for coming in. I hope you enjoy the presentation. If anyone else has any questions, comments, any concerns, any contrasting ideas, I'm open to hear them. Happy to answer them.
One personal question.
Sure.
I saw this tool in your abstract, Wakelet, and I asked a few of my colleagues, and they weren't familiar with it. Could you please tell us a little about this tool, Wakelet?
Oh, the Wakelet tool?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. Oh, let me see. I'm pretty sure I have it here. You guys can still see my screen, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, good. All right. So, this is just a basic dashboard I have here. I'm going to go into it as much as I can. So Wakelet is a cool company that started in the UK. It's some people would like to say it's like a digital collage board or like bookmarks with steroids on them, which is maybe in a sense. So Wakelet is a wonderful tool that it's It hasn't been along for long. Maybe I would say maybe 2 years at the very most. But I did meet up with them a little bit through Zoom during the pandemic. So I would say maybe anywhere from 2 or 3 years at the very most. But it's a very young company, and they've progressed enormously and wonderfully in the UK. So with Wakelet, what you can do is basically you can have a bookmark, or yes, a collage, a digital collage that you can add PDFs, files, and such forth. Um, for example, there's something called collection, so that you can have basically a whole set of things dedicated to a particular topic. This was something I did back in 2020, which was just a recap of some of the events I did. Obviously, I did more than 3 events. I haven't written them all down here, but these are just 3 I toyed around with. Just added them here. Let me see what else. What can I show you? Google Classroom. All right, so these are some of the collections some of my students in an English class did while I was giving them, I believe it was just A2 level English. For example, let's look at one of my students did. Okay, all right. So within the collection that I mentioned of A2 English group, I had this one student that came up with this digital collage. So she titled it Vacations and Shopping Time with Adverbs in English. All right. She started writing about some interesting places she wanted to visit. Some of them were in the US, some in Mexico, some in Japan. For example, the Hedgehog Cafe, I believe this was located in Japan, and she typed in bold the adverbs, as you can see, wonderfully, freely, patiently. So we tasked her to come up and look within Google Maps different places she wanted to visit, and imagine she would have a shopping spree of her own, right? And she came up with this, right? She got a picture of this Hedgehog Cafe in Japan, a beach she wants to visit. As you can see, they can add text, famous place here. Okay, the cenotes in Mexico, all right, and so forth, right? She also added a YouTube video of a place she wants to go. I don't know if she has gone there yet or not, but she added this YouTube clip. So it's an interesting tool. I'm just giving you guys a real quick tutorial, but yeah, I mean, you are able to add PDFs, files. You can sync your Google Drive. You can add images. You can add text, links, small video clips, and so forth. So yeah, Wakelet is a wonderful tool that being active for such a short period of time, they have done some really cool things in the edtech world. So yeah, you can definitely have spaces. I mean, these can be private. This one in particular is private. I did not post it online, but there are some that you can do privately, and there are others that you can do open to the public, right? For anyone to look at.
Well, thank you very much. Would anybody else like to share a thought? Professor David Arturo, thank you for a wonderful ride in the world of technology. Thank you for your contribution. We say goodbye to our professor with a round of applause.
All right. Thank you, everybody. All right. I hope I inspired some of you and just, showed you something that you can use sometime in the future.
Yes.
Or today.
Keep in touch. Thank you very much.
All right. Likewise. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your conference.
Thank you. Well, now we keep walking on the path of technology. Let's move on to our next talk. Thank you so much for coming.